Hey guys, I'm Sun. I'm a privacy and security researcher, and you're watching The Privacy Guides. This is episode 4 of the Bitcoin series. In today's episode, I will be talking about hardware wallets, how to choose between the Trezor One, Trezor Model T, or the COLDCARD. And yes, I got my hands on one thanks to a friend. I will be talking about these 3 hardware wallets and how to source them properly. Now, before we talk about this, I want to remind you that anything you read down there in the comments, that might be someone trying to steal your Bitcoin or steal your money. So please be mindful about this. And I'm counting on everyone of the Privacy Guides community to report any spammy comments quickly so that we get to keep this conversation going. Now, as a second disclaimer, a friend of mine reminded me this morning about the Ledger data breach and said that Ledger is fighting a new scam where devices are actually sent by mail to Ledger users that were in the leak, telling them to switch quickly from their Ledger to this new Ledger that was sent to them. This is a scam. Please be really careful about these kinds of scam. Phishing was actually something. That's when someone tries to get you to log in on a website that is not the right one, stuff that you tend to get by email. But getting a device by mail, wow, that is some crazy ass scheme. So really be careful. You guys should never, ever, ever, ever use a hardware wallet that you haven't sourced properly. And I will be talking about this in today's episode. Now, before I talk about this more, thanks to Shakepay, who is a supporter of the Privacy Guides project and who has sponsored this whole Bitcoin series. The project would not have been possible without their help. Shakepay is a Canadian custodial exchange that allows you to buy or sell Bitcoin. They're actually one of the very rare custodial exchanges that encourage users to cash out, so to move the Bitcoin away to cold storage. So yeah, I'll link to them in the description. If you don't know about them, check them out. All right, so this is not going to be a review of all hardware wallets that exist in the world. It's going to be a review of the ones that I either use or would use myself. I've been an avid user of the Trezor One for pretty much all of my Bitcoin life, which is not that long, unfortunately, but nonetheless, I really love these devices. Now, Trezor, in the context of this Bitcoin series, sent over a Model T. I have an episode in mind to show you guys how to receive Bitcoin donations really easily. So I'm going to be talking about that later in the series. But nonetheless, the Trezor Model T has a few features that really kill it when it comes to InfoSec, and I'll talk about this in a moment. And a device that I've discovered recently is the COLDCARD. I knew of its existence, but had never laid my hands on it. And a friend of mine let me use one of his in order to experiment. And I have to admit that if I was a hardware wallet, if me, the way I think, the way I am, was a hardware wallet, I would definitely be a COLDCARD. Because as you know, I am kind of batshit overkill in the way I do things. And that is totally the case of the COLDCARD. All right, so by the way, I will add little links at the bottom if you're just interested in my opinion on these. I'll link to these different parts of the episode. And if you're just interested in the sourcing part, I'll link to that to the end of the episode. So you can use the little links here. I don't know how they're called, to navigate efficiently and save yourself some time. Okay, so as I mentioned in last episode, Trezor has a vulnerability that allows very sophisticated attackers to exfiltrate the PIN and the mnemonic, or probably not the mnemonic necessarily, but at least the private key out of a Trezor. Now, as I mentioned in the last episode, that is not an incredibly big deal depending on how you set up your things. I still use Trezor devices myself, and I still really value the work that they're doing. The reason Trezor does not use a secure element is because they want to have full visibility on the whole stack. One key difference with the COLDCARD, though, is the COLDCARD is open source and it has a secure element that is only used to store the private key. And that secure element is proprietary, but everything else is open source. So it's kind of like a hybrid approach between Ledger, which is, secure but proprietary, and Trezor, which is fully transparent and open source. Somewhere in the middle in that scheme lies COLDCARD, which has a secure element. And yes, it's pretty cool. That said, from a UX perspective, it might not be for you, and that is what I'm explaining today. So, okay, if you're just getting started with Bitcoin and you want to have a hardware wallet, you want something that is easy to use and that mitigates most InfoSec threats. As I mentioned in last episode, InfoSec are any threats that are digital, so in the digital landscape, keyloggers, vulnerabilities, exploits, stuff like this. The Trezor One packs in an incredible amount of value in a very small form factor that is super convenient to use. I've set up single, I'm not a multi-sig, single sig. Single sig is not even a word. I've set up normal wallets on using Trezor Ones, but I've also set up multi-sig. And I think to anyone who is just getting started, who will be setting up a multi-signature scheme, the Trezor One is great. Now, Trezor devices can be used for multiple cryptocurrencies or altcoins. The Model 1 is great for most of them, but if you're into Monero, which is something that I'm into as well, you cannot use the Model 1 in the context of a Monero wallet. For that, you need to get yourself a Model T. So the first thing that you guys should be asking yourselves is like, what are the cryptos that I want to hold on the wallet? And the whole list is on the Trezor website. COLDCARD is simple in that regard. It is Bitcoin only. So that takes that out of the question. So the Model 1, or Trezor One, I should have said, is really nice. It has two buttons here that can be used to navigate through the menus, and it has a little screen that can be used to confirm transactions before they are signed by the device itself. That, as you can see though, is not touch, well, you don't see it, but it's not touchscreen. It would be pretty small for this, which means that if you're using a passphrase or a PIN, those have to be entered on the computer. So as I mentioned in last episode, from an InfoSec perspective, that means that your passphrase or PIN could be exfiltrated. It's much easier for the passphrase because that's just entered in clear text. The PIN is tumbled in a way where each time you enter it, it's a different pattern, which means it would be pretty hard to exfiltrate the PIN on the computer. So from a PIN perspective, it's pretty good. From a passphrase perspective, not so good. That is where the Trezor Model T really shines. This here is a touchscreen that can be used to enter both PIN and passphrase directly on the device. So in the context of air gapping both devices, that means that they're really two separate entities. That is really cool. So the Trezor Model T is a much more premium product. It's a lot more expensive than the Model 1, but that feature is really nice. So if you're holding a significant amount of Bitcoin and you want to have great user experience, the Trezor Model T is perhaps for you. If you hold Monero, it's definitely the way to go. And now we're going to talk about OPSEC. So OPSEC is operational security. It's securing your holding in the physical world. What if someone has access to your device? Well, that I mentioned in last episode. Using multi-signature is a great way of mitigating that. And I'll be talking about multi-signature and actually setting up a multi-sig wallet later in this series. But a few things to keep in mind, and I've addressed those a little bit in last episode. Well, Trezor devices have a vulnerability that cannot be fixed at the firmware level that allows a very sophisticated attacker to exfiltrate PIN and mnemonic or private key from the device. Again, I'm not sure if it's the mnemonic or the derived private key, but nonetheless, it equals to the same thing. So from an OPSEC perspective, if someone with a lot of resources or a very sophisticated attacker has access to either of Trezor's, either Model 1 or Model T, well, that is a problem. And the solution to this, as I mentioned last episode, is to use a secure passphrase. Now, not only is that passphrase great for plausible deniability, but it is also great to mitigate that vulnerability. Now, that is as far as you can mitigate it in the context of Model 1 or Trezor One. Damn it, son, I keep on saying Model 1. It's called Trezor One. Okay. Now, the cool thing with the Model T is This here, actually, I'm not sure if it will focus, but I will show this in much greater detail in the episode on the specific devices. This device right now has a little skin that actually I find very elegantly designed. But if I remove the skin here, it reveals, and I'm not sure if you'll see this on camera, it reveals a micro SD card slot. So this and that's a feature that is shared with the COLDCARD. It is capable of writing files to a micro SD card, which can be great for backups. But in the context of this, there's another really interesting feature. It can write a specific piece of cryptographic data on the SD card, and now the SD card acts as two-factor authentication. So you need to have the device and you need to have the SD card. So if this is lying at a bank in a vault, and that bank is not honest or whatever, or someone asks them for your device, whatever, well, without the SD card, this is useless. So even if the private key can be exfiltrated and the PIN, without that specific piece of data on the SD card, it's kind of worthless. So there it is, choosing between the Trezor Model 1 and the Model T. Trezor Model 1, damn it, son. The Trezor One and Trezor Model T. Well, it really depends if OPSEC is important to you. From an OPSEC perspective, the Model T is much better. And if you're into Monero, well, you don't really have a choice. Now, say you're a Bitcoin maximalist and you're super hardcore and you're kind of nerdy and you love advanced features, that's where the COLDCARD shines in all its glory. I would highly recommend going on the website. I'll link to it in the description, and just going through the FAQ or going through the documentation on the website. The amount of advanced features in this is just mind-blowing. I mean, I'll just name a few here. First things first, it has a secure element that stores the private keys, which means you cannot exfiltrate the private keys from the device. That is really cool if you're going to be putting this somewhere that you don't necessarily trust. And usually don't trust, verify, so that would essentially be anywhere you store it. It has really good features to mitigate evil mate attacks. So if someone is capable of swapping your device with a compromised device, when you enter the PIN in COLDCARD, you enter it in 2 segments. The first segment will then display a set of 2 words that you memorize in your mind. And if those 2 words are not identical, and that's designed at the factory, so each device, even for the same PIN, will show a separate set of 2 words. Well, if those 2 words don't match what you remember, your device is compromised, so you stop entering the remaining 4. So even if someone is live exfiltrating your PIN, they cannot do nothing about it. So that is really cool. Now, that's all good in the context of someone having access to your device while you're not there. But say you are there, and someone is forcing you to give them access to your PIN and whatever's inside. Well, there is a duress, I think is the word, feature where you can have 2 separate PINs, and one will reveal a specific wallet and the other will reveal your real wallet. So that is a way for you guys to have some kind of plausible deniability baked into the hardware wallet. This can be achieved using passphrases on Trezor, but this is kind of like ingrained in how the device actually works. And you can also set a few different types of PIN that will brick the device permanently, making this a piece of garbage that you should recycle. But essentially, that's really cool as well. And now the other place where this really shines is if you're super bullish cypherpunk and you want to sign transactions on this without ever plugging it into your computer. Well, all of the interfacing between this and Electrum can be done over the micro SD card, which I think they call SneakerNet, which means essentially you running between devices. So anyways, I'll talk more about COLDCARD in a future episode. It's a really neat piece of hardware, but from a UX perspective, it's not the easiest, and it is only used for Bitcoin, so it's not for everyone. Now that I've said all of this, let's talk about sourcing one of these devices. I'll put things really up front here. I would never, ever, 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 ever recommend buying one of these used or on eBay or on AliExpress or on any of these types of websites. The only place that you can buy ledgers and Trezors that is some kind of a marketplace that I know of is Amazon. And even on Amazon, you have to be very mindful about who the seller is. So I'm going to be showing this in a second on my screen. The other thing that you have to be mindful about, well, actually, and you can buy the devices directly from the manufacturers, and that is the recommended means of purchase. So you can buy a Trezor from the official store, Ledger from an official Ledger store, and actually the COLDCARD, which is more of a niche piece of hardware, you can buy on the CoinKite website. I'll show you guys all the links and link them in the description. Now, one thing that you have to be aware of when you're buying these online is they will be shipped to your address. And if you're paying with a credit card, well, your real name will be there as well. And usually you have an email for order confirmation. That kind of data is what was leaked in the Ledger breach. And as you know by now with what I said at the beginning of this episode, it's a hell of a big deal because people who are not well educated when it comes to InfoSec and OPSEC, well, these people could perhaps get that Trezor that Ledger by mail and think that it's actually a legitimate thing, and then swap their holding on it and get robbed, which is very, very sad. That being said, I mean, if you are buying something online, you have to give some level of information, even if you're paying in Bitcoin, which is usually possible, I believe, on the Trezor website, probably on ColdCard as well, probably Ledger, but I don't know Ledger very well. Well, if you're paying in Bitcoin, you still have to have it shipped somewhere. So, where are you having it shipped? If you're really, really hardcore and don't want to be associated in any way, you could find a local store that you trust or someone you trust that has a brick and mortar kind of public facing storefront or whatever, and have the device shipped to them, pay in Bitcoin with a pseudonymous name and everything. That can definitely work. That would help mitigate potential breaches like Ledger was victim of. Now, everyone's pointing at Ledger, and clearly they had a shitty data retention policy. I have no clue why they had 1 million emails in one database. I think Trezor, at least that's what I seem to have understood when I ordered devices, they don't keep data forever. And I think that is a great policy, but everyone could have been victim to this. Here in Canada, one of the largest banks, Desjardins, was victim to a similar breach, and the very personal information, including social insurance number of, I believe, something like 5 million Quebecers was exfiltrated from Desjardins. So without pointing fingers at people, I think we have to be mindful about the fact that the internet works in a specific way. And if you've been watching the privacy guides for some time, you know that everything can be breached. Okay, so clearly, or just as a kind of conclusion here, this here is the Ledger website, shop.ledger.com. That is where you guys would want to buy a Ledger device officially. If you want to buy it on Amazon, please go here in resellers and look at official resellers here. Or if you're buying on Amazon, they have links. If I click on Canada here and I click on one of the products here, for instance, you can see that Ledger Official, that is the official storefront on Amazon.ca. I'm pretty sure the same handle would be used for different countries, but always, please be mindful of the fact that a lot of people, even on trustworthy platforms such as Amazon, are selling potentially compromised devices. So you have to be really mindful of this. This here is the official Trezor store. And as you can see, they accept Bitcoin. Now, if you want to buy a Trezor on Amazon, there is an FAQ here. So of course, another great place for customers is Amazon.com list. Okay. So here, by clicking there, you get to see all of the official resellers, including Amazon resellers. And if you want to buy a COLDCARD, well, store.coinkite.com/store, that is where this happens. And I'm pretty sure you can pay in Bitcoin. Okay, now when you receive these devices, you have to make sure that they're authentic. I'll keep that for another episode, but please be mindful of this and read the documentation from all of these manufacturers as to how to verify the integrity of a device when you receive it. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I'll see you guys in next episode. Bye. Hey guys, I do consulting. If you guys need help to set up a really robust Bitcoin holding and you would like me to hold your hand, I can do that. So yeah, get in touch. I'll link to my contact page in the description. And by the way, thanks to everyone who has donated so far. This project is possible thanks to contributions of viewers like you. So all donations are put to work and allow me to do more of this, create more content. So yeah, thanks. Bye.